Hello and welcome to one more tutorial on using timer interrupts on the Arduino Uno. We'll again be seeing in detail the analog read function and the PWM functions. So this time we are actually going to fire our timers. The setup remains the same, an MB102 power supply adapter with a 9-volt power supply that's used to power a potentiometer. The potentiometer gives an input to the Arduino Uno's analog pins, and this analog read value decides how bright an LED is going to shine, and the brightness of the LED is decided by the PWM input to it. So here's our shopping list, the same from the previous video on this series, and I'll be posting some links in the description box as to where you can get these from. So here are the connections labeled. I have the MB102. There is a 5-volt rail, and this 5-volt rail is connected to a potentiometer. The central pin or the signal pin of the potentiometer is connected to A0, the analog input of the Arduino Uno. We use one digital PWM pin, the pin 6 in this case, as the output, and I have connected it to a LED and a current limiting resistor. The current limiting resistor is basically provided to make sure that the current in the LED remains in the milliamps range. If it goes higher than this, you run the risk of burning your LED. And just to refresh, this is our prescaler table from the Arduino Uno's 8328P datasheet. And as you can see from here, for a prescaler of 256, you need to set the CS12 bit for timer 1 as 1, and the other bits needs to be 0. So as we know that the timer 1 is a 16-bit timer, so the maximum value to which it can count is 2 to the power of 16 minus 1, or 65535. Let's suppose that we use a prescaler of 256, then with the Arduino clock frequency of 16 megahertz, it means that timer would overflow every 1 second. You can verify this calculation. So 1 upon 16 megahertz into 256 into 65535 gives you 1. So here's our first variable, a variable called adjust, which is set to A0, and integer called LED level. Then there is an integer called adjust val and an integer called PWM. Now here's a small trick that I'll tell you. The values that you intend to modify inside an interrupt loop, it's better to initialize them as volatile integers. So here's our setup. We set the serial mode to 9600. The pin mode of LED, that is, this should be pin 6, sorry, as output. The code's been flashed successfully. Now I'll just show you my setup and the practical result is there for you to see. So here's our setup, and I start to tweak my potentiometer. The brightness changes. You can see that very small changes in the potentiometer don't lead to any change because we have set a threshold value of 50. And now you have hit the maximum. So the advantage of the timer interrupt here is that the void loop is now free to do other things. It's not completely engaged by a delay. Thank you.